This is one of those books where I'm wondering what happened. By the first half, I was just, not interested anymore. And the second half, to me, it seems like it's filler. Okay, there's a lot in this book that seems like it's filler to me. You think that you're gonna embark on something out of this world. We're dealing with time travel. We're gonna change history. We're gonna prevent the assassination of JFK, and we're gonna interact or be close in the vicinity of the assassin Lee Harvey Oswald. And you think we're gonna find uh, secret information. We're gonna discover certain things because Stephen King has done some serious research. He wanted to write a book about the JFK assassination in the 70s, but he just wasn't ready for it. And he had a team of researchers, and he went to Dallas, and he went to all the places. And still, to me, this book, 11/22/63 is absolutely unacceptable, right? And I'm gonna say something scandalous, controversial, something that I should have said in my Revival review as well. Okay, just like with Revival, when it comes to this book, listen, anyone else, if anyone else would have written this book word for word, if you wrote this book exactly the same, if I wrote this book exactly the same, not a single publishing house would touch it. Not a single literary agent would read past the first sentence. I know what I'm talking about. I have had dealings with publishing houses and literary agents, giving manuscripts, getting, negative answers. I know what's going on. Hundreds and hundreds of queries. Okay? So anyone else would have written this book exactly the same. Nobody in the literary sphere would have touched it. Okay? And nobody can tell me any different. Okay? This is the same thing with the book Revival. Anyone else that would produce something like this, it would be a no-go. But because it is Stephen King, here we have it. Okay? And now, to me, this book seems a bit mid most of the time. Now, if this book is your favorite, please tell me why. Because to me, this was a snooze fest. It was lackluster. It was a disappointment. I'm not impressed. It was just disappointing, almost in every category. Okay. Now, of course, there are moments when Stephen King's writing shines. Okay, no doubt about it. And listen, here's the problem. As always, Stephen King is a master of characters. Okay, with this book as well, the characters are well developed. They're rounded. They seem human. Okay, you want to read about them. But here's the problem with this book, and usually Stephen King doesn't fail when it comes to the characters. But in this book, here is the problem with the characters. In this book, I like the characters, but I'm not in love with the characters. I like the characters, but I'm not seriously invested in the characters. I like the characters, but I'm not immersed in their lives. I don't really care. They're all right, but that's about it. And, because of this, because I just like them for what they are, and that's it. I'm not really interested or affected in any way by what happens to them, right? I really don't care that our protagonist gets seriously wounded around the end or so, and he has severe brain trauma, and he has amnesia, and he's just fucked up in every way, and it takes a long time for him to recover, and you feel just what a grueling period that this healing is, right? You can tell that, our protagonist, Jake, will never be the same ever again, right? And strangely, I don't really care. I'm sorry that this happened to him. It's a shame that this happened to him, but I don't really care. That is a problem when something this major happens to the protagonist and the reader doesn't care. We have a problem here. We have a serious problem. And again, because I just like the characters, I don't care that Sadie, gets killed in the end by Oswald. I don't really care. It's a shame, it's even a tragedy, but I'm not that invested, especially not emotionally. She's a great character. Like, she's probably second fiddle to Jake Epping, but still, I don't really care. And listen, because of the ending, I guess the ending was supposed to be this, I don't know, romantic tragedy because Jake had to go back to the present to change things, and now Sadie, his lover in the past, is an old woman, and he's still young, and they dance together in the end, and I guess this last scene was supposed to touch a nerve, to touch a chord. I guess the purpose was for the reader to feel like this was an unfortunate, tragedy, an unfortunate card dealt out by destiny, by fate, right? But even though it is a tragedy, the ending is a tragedy, of course, because these two people could have been together, and because of time travel shenanigans, they can't be together like they were in the late 50s, early 60s. And now, Sadie is old, and Jake cannot have that relationship with her. And they dance together, and it's a bit of nostalgia, and that's the end. And unfortunately, I have to repeat myself, the problem is that I don't care. I understand the intentions of the author, but by the end, I was just over it. This book is way too bloated. Like, listen. You could have cut half of this book, so 300 pages instead of 600, and it still would be too much. 300 pages would still be too much. Like, by the second half of this book, it was just murder. It was just such a labor intensive for me to keep on reading, and it took me a while to finish this book. If this book were engrossing, I could have finished it 2 weeks ago. But I had to take breaks because it is just so filled to the rim of absolute filler. And you think we're gonna engage in some serious time travel shenanigans and their insane implications, and you think because Stephen King did some serious research, you think we're gonna discover never before seen evidence, evidence that the public has never seen regarding the JFK assassinations. And oh boy, it's nothing like that. It's like 1%, okay? And because of that, this book is a disappointment. In this book, we have a couple of things that are just dangled in front of you, like treats, and you're just so hyper. You think, what does this mean? What's that? What are the implications? What are the connections? How are these things linked? How are these things connected? What are the implications here? This is crazy, Like, for example, there's this word or name that is being mentioned time and time again, Jimla. Jimla, especially at the beginning when our time traveler Jake goes back into the late 50s, and there's this hobo there, and that hobo calls him Jimla, and afterwards, for hundreds of pages, we keep crossing paths with this word or term or name, Jimla, and you think, oh boy, this is some serious, maybe this is some serious stuff we're dealing with here. You think that maybe this is even foreshadowing for something. You think when Stephen King reveals the meaning of the term Jimla, oh man, everything will make sense and you'll be just like, hey, yo, that's crazy. It's never gonna happen. The word Jimla is nothing special. It's nothing. It has no connotations. It's just something. Okay? And you cannot overhype something that is just something. If you are a writer and you're writing mysteries and etc., make sure that you deliver at the end. And Stephen King does not deliver with this Jimla term. It's just pathetic, in my view. It's just lackluster in every way. And we have another, let's call it a red herring, maybe, that is also extremely disappointing, which is this yellow card man that Jake meets when he first travels back into the past. So when Jake goes back in the past for the first time, he meets or crosses paths with this hobo wino guy called the Yellow Card Man. Okay, because he has a fedora and he has a yellow card in the brim of his hat. And you think, what does this mean? What are the implications? Because the Yellow Card Man, he becomes the Red Card Man. And then when he dies, he becomes the Black Card Man. And then another card man comes along, another hobo, and he is like the Green Card Man and the Vermilion Card Man and the pink and the yellow and the blue. And I'm just like, you think as a reader this will be the thing, the revelation that will change everything, and put this whole plot line into perspective, and you think you're gonna get your mind blown by this revelation. What's the deal with this Yellow Card Man that seems to be a bit crazy, but he may be an alcoholic, who knows? And of course, the suspicion is, I immediately suspected that this Yellow Card Man could be another time traveler of sorts. Obviously, there's no subtlety. But again, Stephen King fails to deliver tremendously the so-called revelation. It feels like a fart, like a fart in the wind. There's no, even the expectation is kind of deflated when the so-called revelation is finally revealed. And I'm just like, really? We read about this guy for hundreds of pages, and he's just, listen, he's some sort of, the Yellow Card Man is, of course, some sort of police or guardian of the time travel multiverse, whatever. And I guess these people are mentioned in Stephen King's other works. Of course, I've heard about this, maybe in some short stories. And you think this Yellow Card Man, who's also like a guardian of the time travel paradox, whatever, you think this guy is gonna expose something. You think this guy, he's gonna change the narrative completely, and we're gonna go on another level that's gonna be crazy. So this does not happen, folks. Just like with Jimla, the Yellow Card Man is a complete disappointment. It completely deflated me as a reader, and I was just like, I was over it by then. I was just like, okay, bro, let's move on with this. Let's get it over with, right? And of course, our protagonist actually prevents the JFK assassination, and of course, he goes back into the future and he finds out that actually, because he prevented the JFK assassination, the future turned out to be much worse than it already was. Some sort of dystopian nightmare, right? With nuclear radiation, society is in the pits, etc., etc. But there's nothing really extraordinary about it. Listen, this is the problem. This book about time travel and the implications of changing major events, and what will happen if you could prevent this and that throughout the nightmare that is history, you assume that perhaps things would be much better for everybody. And this book, in every aspect, fails to deliver. When it comes to the time travel and all of the multiverse implications, Stephen King does a mid job at best. Even the dystopian future is kind of mid at best, okay? There's nothing really special or avant-garde or, outside the norm when it comes to the mechanisms of this book. The time travel, all of this, it's barely touched upon. There's just this portal that opened and you can go through and come back and, right? Nothing special. And listen, by the end, I had one hope. And that hope was that perhaps, because as Stephen King says in the last page, it's a sort of author's disclaimer or annotation. Stephen King, of course, says that he did a lot of research. He wanted to write this book for a long time. And I had this hope that perhaps because he did this extensive research, Stephen King was going to bring something out of this world to the table in regards to the JFK assassination and Oswald and all the implications. I thought that because he actually states that he not only read the major books about the JFK assassination, but he went to the locations. Okay, he talked to various people and custodians and who knows who else, right? He thanks a lot of people, experts, I guess, at the end of this book. And I thought, man, we're gonna get a couple of clues that a lot of people missed. And nothing of the sort happens whatsoever. Actually, it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth because early on, Stephen King kind of already arrives at the conclusion that, yes, indeed, he accepts basically the mainstream narrative that, it was Lee Harvey Oswald. He was, the lone crazy gunman, and there were absolutely no implications, no connotations, nothing sinister. The speculations, Stephen King says, are basically conspiracy theories, and basically, I surmise from his conclusion that he accepts the mainstream narrative that, Oswald was this loser. He liked to beat his wife. He was kind of crazy. He had proclivities for socialism, whatever. And he wanted to be famous because his life was going nowhere. And yes, indeed, Stephen King repeats himself over and over again just what a piece of shit this guy was because he beat on his wife and he beat the ass of his wife again and again. And this is the conclusion that Stephen King arrives at, that this Occam's razor, usually the simplest answer is indeed the simplest answer. And here is what I have to say on the matter. Occam's razor, the simplest answer, applies only when you don't have any contradictory evidence. And unfortunately, Occam's razor does not apply to the JFK assassination because, of course, there are mountains and oceans of evidence and proof that contradicts, the Occam's razor. Oh, this lone gunman, he was just a nutter and he just wanted to be famous, whatever. And he bought a gun through the mail and that's about it. Absolute hogwash. I think even a little child, if you present certain pieces of evidence, will realize, that's fishy right there. That's something wicked there, whether all of these secret services like the FBI and CIA were involved, or the Cubans or the Russians or, the mob, it is obvious. Plain as simple, that if you apply a bit of logic, if you dare to engage in critical thinking, it's obvious that the JFK assassination wasn't no, run-of-the-mill. This crazy guy, he just wanted to he just acted alone. Of course he did. Right? You know, JFK got popped, his brother got popped, Martin Luther King, and then decades later, JFK's son, right, in a plane crash. And, there's nothing absolutely suspicious about this whatsoever. Nothing, right? Stephen King accepts the mainstream narrative that this vanilla version that no, it was just Oswald, and he acted alone because he was a bit crazy, he was a bit Lulu in the dome, and don't really look into it, folks, right? Which is a shame. Dare I say that maybe this is a propaganda piece to reinforce into the general public that you don't need to look into this. It's same old, crazy loner goes on a spree, and there are no connections, and there's nothing nefarious here. Go back to your meme, folks, because nobody was implicated in this whatsoever, and who cares, because it's been, half a century already. Who cares, right? It's a damn shame. Occam's razor applies only when there is no contradictory evidence. And when it comes to the JFK assassination, there are oodles. There is a universe of obvious contradictory evidence. And even a moron, I would say, can identify that something doesn't smell right here. It's fishy, right? So even on that front, Stephen King fails miserably, in my view. So I guess this is my statement of all the Stephen King books that I have read so far. I haven't read all of them, but so far this book is positively the worst I have ever read. It's a snooze fest, folks, with few exceptions here and there. But overall, this book is just a chore. Grueling. And moreover, I do not recommend anyone this book. I mean, it's a waste of time, basically. There are far better Stephen King books out there than 11/22/63. This book is just a disaster, a catastrophe of epic proportions in terms of it being astonishingly boring as hell. But that's about it. If this book is your favorite, tell me why in the comment sections. If you generally enjoy this book, please tell me why, because to me, this book is extremely undeserving of any praise, with a couple of exceptions that I have mentioned in this video. But that's about it. If you enjoy this content, if you want to support your boy, I got a few books of my own on Amazon. The link will be down below. If the link does not work, you can search my name, Griffith Samsara. Thanks for watching. Keep on reading good books. See ya.